Like, what if you had a superpower where you could fart different scents? Like, but you had to fart it, right? So you only have a certain amount of gas that you can store up, and then you could like create the scent of, flora, fauna, tiger. Like once a day, you can have a good long scentaceous.
Hello and welcome to Corner Comics, your mostly weekly comic book reading club. And on this podcast, we talk about different unique superhero abilities, apparently. I'm actually glad that I caught that. It was like right as we went live, you're like, what if you had a superpower? So yes, this is episode 37. My friends and I get together. We pick a few comic issues. We share those issues with each other, and then we talk about those issues. So I'm joined by Russ and Emmanuel. Gentlemen, how are you doing on this fine Sunday, and where can people find you?
I am ever climbing.
Sensationally and splendidly serene. We're just going to talk over each other.
Go ahead, you go.
No, I am doing sensationally and splendidly serene. And you can find me on the gram at EM_MAN_YOU_EL. That's phonetically Emmanuel or EmmanuelTheStory.com.
Well, me, I'm climbing and always rhyming and sometime. And anyway, so I'm all over the place these days. You can find me at the following: blacksuperherofan.com. You can find me on comiccreatorsofcolor.com. You can find me on my personal website, walrus.org, WALLRUSS.org. You can also find me on Twitter at Walrus, that's at WALLRUSS. And you can also find me here on Corner Comics and on cornercomics.net. More to come.
Yeah, we stream every Sunday, 9 a.m. Pacific time on twitch.tv/cornercomics. If you're listening to us on one of your podcatchers, you'll probably get the episode Monday or Tuesday. And cornercomics.net, you can find an archive of the video. You can also find us on BitChute. So, getting into it, we've got 6 books, like always. I'm bringing 2, Russ is bringing 2, and Emmanuel's got 2. My 2 issues this week are Witchblade number 80. This was the beginning of Ron Mars's run on Witchblade. And my second issue is Fantastic Four number 82, a classic Stan Lee and Jack Kirby book that I thought would be interesting to share. Russ, which 2 books do you have this week?
Let's see. I brought 2 books. The first one I brought is Marvel Team Up, number 14. It's a 2006 issue, and it teams up Spider-Man and Invincible. My second book, which is a DC book, is Superman, Volume 2, number 179. It's an older book, 2002, and it introduces the superhero Muhammad X. It's not as old as that Fantastic Four book, though.
Emmanuel?
Well, like Russ, I have both a Marvel book and a DC book. My DC book is Teen Titans, Volume 6, issue number 44. It's the current 2020 run. My second book is also a current 2020 run. It's Maestro, issue number 1.
I think that just came out this last week, right?
Yeah.
It did.
Yeah. I saw that on the shelf, and I was curious about it. Did not pick it up, but Emmanuel did, so now I had to read it. All right, let's jump right into it. Witchblade number 80. The reason that I picked this issue is because this starts a brand new story arc for Witchblade, and is, I think, the first book by writer Ron Mars, who is probably most notable for his work on Green Lantern. And I thought it would be interesting to talk about, is this a good sort of soft reboot, and how do you do a soft reboot in a book? So kind of curious of what your guys' thoughts are on that.
Okay, I could go. This book went out. Let's see, when did it come out now? Back in
2005, I think.
Yes, I think so. 2005.
Yeah.
So I've always liked The Witchblade. I remember the live action series, which I very much loved. Went for 2 seasons, I believe.
Yep.
And is one of those characters that is not Marvel or DC that has sort of made its way into my sort of indelible list of superhero characters that I'm just going to like, right? So this book, I like the art, right? I like the sort of, because you introduce, this is really a story told through this sort of everyman, the helper, the guy that's a cop that doesn't know he's going to be a major player in this comic yet. He's just doing his job.
Yeah.
And so he began, and this is sort of how he is brought into the mystery of it. Again, I very much liked the art. It was very pleasing all the way through. It's still a little bit dated 80s wise, but it didn't take away anything from it for me. There's a lot of mystery here. What was missing is that this is a Witchblade book, and nothing in this book said anything about what makes her great. I mean, they had one montage panel
Right.
where they showed different Witchblades, wielders posing, but nothing about this. If you don't already know who Witchblade is, I can't say there's enough here to make you say you should read more, because the only thing they presented to you is a mystery and this guy that's a cop who's not easily likable, because he's got those cop sensibilities, right? You have to already love or have an affinity for or a desire to know more about Witchblade. What's missing here, if you want to say jumping on point, if this is a Witchblade book, something has to happen, some part of the story. You have to succinctly tell me what makes her amazing and why I should follow her. Because she's in a coma the whole fucking book. Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
She wakes up at the end, and I put a thing in the notes, so, I'm going to say it now. She has one breast in the middle of her shirt. I don't understand right? And the last thing, I'm like, what? What's the purpose of that?
So it's a top-down view, and she's twisted. So you do see the other boob. It just
No, you don't. I don't see it. I see a big right in front, like whoop, and then shoulder, whoop, shoulder. I'm like, what's this in the middle? Is she Cyclops in her chest or something? I don't know. Anyway, that's a small thing, because it's not about the last panel necessarily as much as getting there. So visually, this was good. The posing was good. The look of the Witchblade was good. The possible mystery here was somewhat interesting, but nothing about this says you should want to learn more about Witchblade.
okay.
That's what was missing as far as a jumping off point with me. I'd say this is a famous run, I guess.
Yeah.
So if you have some interest in Witchblade already, then I say this is definitely a read. And maybe even a buy, because this is, in my opinion, a good run. However, if you don't really know who Witchblade is, you ain't getting it in this book. So anyway, that's my take. Emmanuel?
All right, so I've always been interested in the character, not so much to do a deep dive, but a passive interest. As Russ mentioned, the series was really good. I really enjoyed that. And visually, this comic does stand out. It does look older, though. It doesn't look as if it is a 2005 issue. It looks older, like the late 90s. If you would have said 1999, 1998, I would have completely bought that.
Right.
There's nothing really up to date. And I guess that's good to stand the test of time. There's no dated technology. There's no cell phone, flip phone, any of that. So years from now, this could still be a thing. This could still be relevant without any kind of dated markers. The art itself from the character, I like it. I don't love it, but but I like it. There's a few panels where the iris is gone, so it's kind of like a dead eye. But all in all, the Witchblade itself, it's nice, it's good. I like the shading. It is a bit kind of overdone to make it dramatic, but beyond that, it's still like. Uh, and the mystical shopkeep that piqued my interest. Again, I don't have a lot of information about the lore behind the Witchblade, but the mystical shopkeep, knowing he's connected and he knows all about the Witchblade, and he's the kind of the seer of everything, the overseer, and he knows what's going on. He knows which player is what. That is interesting. It does pique my interest even more. So by the end of the issue, when she awakens from her coma, who knows what's going to happen subsequently after that. So I would say this is a read, a solid read, almost a buy, because there was no live action, there was no kick-assery, but
Conflict.
it was still, yeah, there was. But she's in a coma, so how did she get in a coma? They did somewhat of a flashback. This monster that I think it was in a church, and she fought the monster, staved the monster off. So there's questions, but no real live conflict. How she got in the coma was kind of alluded to. It wasn't drawn or told. All in all, solid.
Yeah. For me, there wasn't any conflict. There were no stakes, really, and there was nothing about. Wow, you should really want to learn more about the Witchblade. She's fucking awesome. I didn't get that.
It's crazy because I've been trying for the last, I don't know, month or two to try and find a good Witchblade book to share with you guys, knowing that neither of you are that heavily invested in the character or the series, and also trying to find a book that would be a good starting on point for anybody that's watching or listening to us. And it's extremely difficult. Like, you almost have to start with issue 1. You can't just jump into it, which is a lot to ask, because I think this went for 130 issues or something. So, I mean, it's hard to ask somebody, well, start at issue 1 and just read 100 issues to get to some good story.
It is free. This issue is free on Comixology. We'll have a link in the show notes.
Yeah.
So you can read it for yourself and see what you think, and then maybe come back and comment and let us know if we were off base. And you get a free book out of it. So definitely click the link and get a free digital book.
All right. Any final thoughts?
No.
All right. Moving on, my second issue is Fantastic Four, number 82. This is from 1963, I believe.
Yes, before I was born.
Classic Stan Lee and Jack Kirby. This actually was a book that I picked up called Marvel's Greatest Stories. It was a reprint of this story, and I found it in the bargain bin. I think it was $1 that I paid for the comic, and I was just really intrigued by an old book that reprinted an even older book that had Jack Kirby art in it, and I was like, oh, you know what? I'll pull the original issue and share that, and just kind of see what the guys think. So, you can give me your thoughts.
Manuel?
I'll go. So, I think this is one of the rare occasions where it wasn't the original four. Sue Storm is probably off gallivanting with Namor, doing her thing. But
it's not.
You have.
I thought it was. Are we reading a different book? Oh yeah, you're right.
You have.
Not. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, no. You have the Invisible Woman. You have the Thing. Well, no, you don't have the Invisible. So you have the Thing. You have Mr. Fantastic, and you have the Human Torch, and an add-on, a newest edition. You have what's that? Crystal, I want to say.
Yeah.
She's an Inhuman, and she has elemental powers. Now you don't really see a lot. I don't think she uses her powers once in this issue, if I'm not mistaken. But they talk about how she has elemental powers. She is a fully fledged princess, the Inhuman world, so she definitely has abilities. And they wanted to add her, but she's a minor. Complete oversight from Mr. Fantastic to have her on board and not talk to anyone associated with her family about her joining this group of three guys, by the way, two adults and her boyfriend to go out, God knows where in the outer space, just live in the tower. I guess it's just a complete and utter oversight to steamroll over the fact that she is a minor. Anyway, beyond that, they don't even harp on that. That's just one sentence. The fight itself, when Lockjaw comes in, teleports in, I love Lockjaw. I love Lockjaw. And much like Russ, I really like those characters that are like the pets. But there's Lockjaw doesn't murder, so I don't know where he ranks in Russ's tier. But
He's not Thory.
Yeah, he's under
Thory's
Thor.
the
the
best.
murder.
he's not like Thory at all. But he's great. This was a good book. It was an interesting read. Again, you knocked out the park with two solid reads for me. I think that it's enough to make me want to read more because you have the Inhumans locked up, or sometimes captive. The Medusa, she's not necessarily locked up, but she's incapacitated because she can't use her hair. She has some hair gel, which is so weird. That's her kryptonite. A special form of hair gel. It's like
Jerry curl juice.
So low.
So this was hilarious because of the times. 1960s book. I was expecting some outdated slang. Didn't really get it. You just got like a product of the times with the way they talk. And before I'm done, the Thing. I forgot he was quippy, or as quippy as he has been. This issue, every single thing, he didn't let Reed get by with anything. He just was on it. He was worse than Spider-Man. He was like Deadpool quality quip. They weren't great quips, but still, he would spew them out. So anytime in any subsequent books, if the Thing ever talks bad about how Peter Parker won't shut up, I'm not buying it. I'm not buying it because your original run, you were worse than him. Solid book overall.
I feel
Nice read.
that's and thank you. I feel like that's a part of the character that's sort of lost on the newer books. And that was something that I noticed too, is just how I guess quippy is a good way to put it. But just he is that comedic element in these stories for sure.
Okay, so when I went through this book, I kept hearing Reed Richards' voice as in that first animated series. And I don't know if you got to take a look at the link I shared with you.
I did, yeah.
All right. So that's the Reed Richards I heard.
Okay.
All right. Which I think really encapsulated the Fantastic Four from this time. I think it's very much a classic animated series. There was a part that I really liked where the Thing in that animated clip, and I'll put in the show notes if anyone's interested, in that animated clip where he's the Thing is swinging down to knock somebody out. And normally he says clobbering time, but because he's jumping, he says clobberonimo. Clobberonimo. I'm like, what the heck, right? But only the Thing could say that, right?
Yeah.
And in that animated series, you get the Thing quips. You get that. I think what has happened is that they have changed the Thing over time. New writers, new moving forward.
Yeah.
That they made him older, and they made him less quippy, more. Okay, I'm going to say this and hope I'm not shouted out of here. Old Jew complaining, right? Because he's a Jewish character, right? And there's some sort of stereotypical complaining about the world. He does that more than he does making the quips. He does that more currently in the comics. But of course now he is old and married and a little more crusty, so maybe that's the deal. Maybe they have, because this was back before Reed Richards had the white tufts of hair, right? So maybe they Asianized him.
Well, he's got the.
Does
white.
he have the white tufts in this?
Yeah.
Oh, he does.
How about that? All right. So then, how old would he be now? Right. If he's already got the white tufts, he should be all white by now. All right. It should be no other. Anyway, I like the book for nostalgia. I like the book for Kirby. I like the fact that there seemed like there was 800 pages for a comic that cost, what, 12 cents?
Yeah.
All right. Approved by the Comics Code. I like the value of the book, even for its time, as well as now, because there was a couple places where they could have ended the book, and it would have been a reasonable place to end it, right? And I was like, oh, there's more?
Yeah.
Because I thought, the book was over a couple times. Oh, there's more? And so you got more for your money. There is something that is old school about it that is not good in that, and that women are powerless.
Yeah.
Right? No woman kicks any ass. They all can just be grabbed up and grabbed around or shoot them with shogo, and they just, oh, my hair, oh. And they can't do anything, right? So remember, this was in the 60s. And so, the men are jailed up and locked up, right? But the women are out. They just got sprayed. Like, here's some water, cat. Meow. And then they're no good, right? Come here, winch, right? And they're nothing. But so the women are out because they're no threat, even though they have great powers, right?
Right.
And you can't like fight. This, they all trained to fight. They should be able to take out. And I know Crystal is a teenager, but if you're a teenager in the world of family, I mean, come on. I mean, and Eddie Murphy coming to America, he could whoop everybody with a stick before he ever came to America, right? You already know he could do that. He should have been able to fight, but this is the 1960s, and I do like the science and I do like the art of that time, definitely. But women can't do anything here, right? Remember, the Invisible Girl didn't always have force field powers. She was just the Invisible Girl.
Right.
The force field powers came later. So this harkens back to the time where women are not even worth locking up, right? They're a second thought, and any woman that gets on my nerves, I just grab her and go, shut up, woman. And then she's just going to bow down. Oh, I can't do anything. I'm under your control. You fiend, you'll never get away with this. That was what this comic brought. But again, this comic book is older than I am. So it makes some kind of sense. I liked it. It's worth a read. I would say if you want to have it in your collection, you want to get all of them or get some kind of treasury edition. And I think there is a treasury edition that includes this, where you get 20, 40, 50 issues in one hardcover. I'd recommend that because these are good stories. And that original Fantastic Four animated series, not the 2 to 3 that have come out since then, they're not as great as that original one. And again, I'm going to put a link in the notes so you guys can take a look for yourself. But it's interesting, and it sort of got into what the essence of the Fantastic Four is. Reed puts them in situations. Thing hits the way out of it. The Human Torch has sex with every woman he can and has his fiery personality that matches fiery powers. And then whatever girl they have who's powerless.
Right.
You know what I mean? And that's sort of what it was back in the day. But a classic nonetheless. Those are my thoughts.
Cool. I will say we read the digital version, which the artwork is, I think, really well done in terms of how they've presented it digitally. So what you get with the older books, the printing method was usually like the dots of color rather than a solid color.
Got it.
So these are like this version is almost to use like a video game term, like a remaster of the original.
Makes sense.
So I would say if you are interested, I think it's $2 or $1 or something on Comixology.
$1.99 on Comixology.
Yeah, it's $2. It's really worth it to just be able to see Kirby's art brought back in a nice way. And as you were saying, the hardcover editions, they do the same thing. They like digitally remaster it before they print them. So, all right, those are my 2 issues. I'm glad you guys liked them. if there are any final thoughts. All right,
I
moving
do want
on.
to say
Okay.
that the thing, his personality, thinking about it a bit more, it went from ever loving, like very, very quippy, to blue eyed. And he says he's ever loving, but he's a lot more tortured now because of his biological situation. But he is very more layered and a lot more tortured. That was it.
Yeah, that's a good point, actually.
Tragic.
He's been through some tragic stuff.
I don't know if can he even love? If you were made of rocks, can you even love up your wife? I mean, she could love you.
They do ask those questions in Mallrats.
All
There you
right.
go. Because that's got to be a rough. What if you turn over in your bed and crush her? I'm just saying. You gotta have two beds. Anyway, moving on. Shall I?
Yeah, your first book.
My first issue of the day is Marvel Team Up, Volume 3, number 14. It came out in 2006. It has Spider-Man teaming up with Invincible. I chose this because, we have the Invincible animated series they're casting for, and it's coming out soon. And I've always liked Invincible, and it's interesting to see sort of him measure up, not power-wise, but innocence-wise with Spider-Man. And you may have already read it because obviously this book has been out for some years. But tell me what you think.
Manuel, I'll let you go first.
I love me some Invincible. I love me some Invincible. Sad that the current, like, it's not an ongoing issue. It ran its course. It's done. Sad about that. But I also love me some Spider-Man. So these two in the same universe, albeit temporarily, it was still great. It was a fun ride. I have emotional investments with each of these characters. Peter Parker and it was Mark Grayson. It's wonderful. And I like the fact that even though this is a Spider-Man book, if I'm not mistaken, just a Marvel Team Up one shot, but in the Invincible book, he references this. He goes back to his dimension, and you see the web still on his back, and he's mumbling to himself about the gripe he has for Spider-Man's name. It's like, I just don't get it. I mean, like, why would you name yourself after Spider? Like, it just lacks all imagination. And he goes about his day. So that was good. I read that part. I know he was universe hopping, and they alluded to him going to the Marvel universe. It wasn't until sometime later that I knew that this was an actual thing, that they created an issue about it. I just thought it was like a fun little homage to Spider-Man. This issue was great only because I had the emotional investment. Had I not had the emotional investment in Invincible, knew nothing about him, and I knew about Spider-Man because everybody knows about Spider-Man, it would still be good, but I don't think it would be a buy for me. I don't think it would still be a read. It would still be a read, but it wouldn't be a buy. This is a buy for me now because I have the emotional investments for both. I love both of these characters. I know where they're coming from. I know their motivations. You do get some exposition on Invincible's motivations. So coming into it, he wouldn't be completely foreign to you, but it's just solid. And there is an outsider's perspective on the Avengers, on Spider-Man, his costume. So that's refreshing. Growing up with this character, it's hard for me to step back and take a look at Spider-Man and see his costume as creepy, because as a kid it wasn't. But if it's my first time laying eyes on him, yeah, it's full suit and webs and stuff, and you call yourself Spider-Man and you stick to walls, you spin like these things out of your hands, that's creepy. That's creepy, but this was good. I appreciated it. It's a buy.
Yeah. So this was a really fun, just casual book, I feel like. It's a nice sort of introduction to the character of Invincible. I did tweet out the panel where he's talking about Spider-Man's name, and we got some responses. Moses, the well-read mage, he jumped on and commented, and had a couple other people comment on that. So maybe I'll link the tweet in the show notes so you guys can see that. But yeah, I thought it was really good. It was some great writing. Just the banter back and forth between the two characters was really cool. Um, I love when he meets the other Avengers. I didn't even think that you could do this in 2002 or whatever, but Black Man. What?
He didn't know what to call Luke Cage. Luke Cage just in like jeans and a shirt. He'd be like, okay, based on Spider-Man's naming convention, you are
Yeah. So,
Black Man?
so we got Robot Man, Claw Man, Flag Man, Fabio Man, Batwoman, and Black Man. I was like, oh my god, that's both hilarious and kind of scary that was printed in the early 2000s.
Yeah.
But yeah, I thought it was a good book. It was kind of cool how quickly he dismantled Doc Ock. It was like, you get the impression that Spider-Man has been in this heated battle with Doc Ock in the very beginning of the book, and God knows how long they've been, going back and forth. And then the second time that they encounter Doc Ock, Invincible basically just breaks the robotic arms, and he's done. Crisis averted, supervillain stopped, and just in time, here's the portal, and let me jump to the next dimension. Yeah, overall, just a really fun book. I would say this is a buy. Yeah, definitely.
So for me, there wasn't a whole much at stake here. What made it fun was, showing that Invincible is more innocent even than Peter Parker,
Yeah, that was kind of interesting.
right? That was because you don't think who gets more innocent than Peter Parker. You know what I mean? Who is more white bread, for lack of a better word, than Peter Parker? Just and so I thought that was interesting. I thought he was a simpler, and it shows Invincible sort of a simpler hero, even though he fights larger threats. And remember, he beats Doc Ock easy because this is basically Superman, right? He basically got all the powers of Superman. He should be able to beat Doc Ock quite easily, right?
Yeah.
Spider-Man been present 10 times. Invincible has been present, 100 times in theory?
Yeah.
Of course he should be able to take down Doc Ock. He just have to be sure not to hit him too hard, which was even discussed here. So I thought this was, okay, Marvel team-ups, the Marvel team-up books brand were never world-shattering, right? You had Marvel team-up and Marvel 2-in-1. Remember, Marvel team-up was Spider-Man teaming up with somebody. Marvel 2-in-1 was the Thing teaming up with somebody, back when the Thing was quippy, right? So it was a good, series of books. There was never anything here that's going to be extra meaty. This was just supposed to be fun. And I thought, here's a fun book, right? That's not heavy. And then here you bring a fresh perspective, and you bring Invincible, which a lot of people, including myself and apparently you, already like. I thought, all in all, if you have any interest in just getting a thought, well, how would Invincible get along in this universe, here's a little piece of that. So I'm glad you liked it. I got a buy for buy. I'm doing good. Let's move it on to. Do you have any final words on my book?
I do.
Yeah, it's my book.
Looking through it, I am in love with the commercials, the ads. It's a product of the times. The advertisements for different video games, PlayStation 2, Xbox, Nintendo DS. You have Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. You have some more obscure ones like Tasmanian Tiger, but it's great. You have Sonic. I really like those ads. I miss those old school ads. That was it.
Yeah. There was a SpaghettiOs ad too, by the way, in case you need to know.
Yes.
SpaghettiOs are classic, but mostly video game ads. So good point.
Yeah.
Yes. All right. With that said, I'm going to move on to my next book, which is Superman Volume 2, number 179. It is my oldest book today. It is 2002. And in this book, Superman meets a black superhero as he goes into a neighborhood that he normally doesn't show up in for the first time. And I can't say hilarity ensues. What do you guys think?
Man, you want to go first?
Sure. This was thought-provoking. This was thought-provoking because Superman himself he appears to be just this not just, but a white American male. But he himself is an outsider, an alien, a stranger, a literal outcast. He was casted out of his planet because he blew up. But he has a different perspective. He's not coming at the situation from a race perspective because everyone is a different race to him. He's looking at humanity as one whole, different shades, but one whole group. And then walking into Harlem, which is not typical for him to do, but he just saved in the world. He has this global perspective, not really a race relation type person, but he has this conversation. It's needed. It's great. I want to say there's a resolution, but there isn't. It's just thought provoking. At the end of the issue, you see Superman flying off after speaking with Malcolm X, and the last panel he has a fist ball. So it's still some feelings there. Nothing was resolved. It was just, this is my perspective, this is your perspective, and your perspective helps you sleep at night. Great, good, nothing has changed. I think I appreciate that. It wasn't preachy. It was just, these are the issues at hand, and this is how this person feels, this is how this person feels. And the question was posed, but there is no one solid answer. It's
What was the question?
This is the situation.
What is the question?
The question, all right. I would say the question posed was, can Superman, with the appearance of all white, still have an impact and still be as relevant in Harlem? Or should he allow that to just be off limits because you already have black heroes who are doing the thing already? Like, no one's going to look up to you. So therefore, should you back away a little bit and allow the black heroes to handle the business? I think that was the question. At least that's the question that I got. Because he then came to Martian Manhunter and he didn't ask the question like, am I overstepping? But he asked Lois, what was the question he asked Lois? Something about being colorblind, or is he doing the right thing?
Yeah, she mentions it to him that she thinks he's the most colorblind person that she knows.
Yeah. So the question, like, is he doing the right thing about, like, should he step back in those neighborhoods? I think that is the question. And I'm trying to go to a specific panel, but I'm trying to talk at the same time. But by reaching the black community, am I hurting them? Is what he poses. That's the question.
Yeah.
It's a really, really good question.
I was going to just kind of interject while you look for that panel.
Go for it.
Muhammad X, I had to look up because I was like, damn it, Russ is going to have this whole backstory about this character and like what issues he was in and this and that. Like, how do you not know about this character? This is the only issue that this guy is in. This is it.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
So it's a first and last appearance. Like what the hell happened there? I think his power set is super cool. What we get to see, he could phase through stuff. He can change the weight of things. I think it's just sort of really interesting what it is that he can do. To what Emmanuel was getting on about sort of the underlying topic and the social commentary that was in the book. I thought it was interesting. I didn't really take it as sort of a black-white thing. I mean, it's sort of framed in that, but I also got out of it that, here is this character that's very old and has, a certain, I guess, cliche about him. And how does that character continue to be fresh and new? And because there's a conversation that he has with, I think is it Steele's daughter or little sister?
Yeah. Steele's sister, also Steele probably at this point, but something else maybe.
Yeah, and she's naming all these other superheroes, and Superman has no idea like who these people are or anything like that, and he's just he's just, like old and out of touch. And what does that mean in this new world? So I that's what I got out of it. I mean, there is the question of race and all that, but I thought it was more about how do you take this old antiquated character and keep making him fresh and making him relevant, and is the character himself conscious of how out of touch he is and relevant, So,
Yeah, I'm gonna go middle of the road between you guys. First of all, Jeff Loeb and Jeff Johns,
yeah, collaborating on it. Yeah, that's great.
right, on a book since 2002, and of course you have Courtney in there as Stargirl, and he's doing the new Stargirl series.
Right.
So I'm gonna say both things are happening. Um, Superman is out of touch. At least at this time in this writing, he is out of touch. He doesn't know about black superheroes. He doesn't even know what's happening with challenges black people are necessarily having, unless it's become something he has to get involved in. It's not in his wheelhouse. But he does know what's happening in Russia and will fly off there and do that. But he's not, to be the American way, you don't see him flying off and quelling rebellions in the U.S., right?
Yeah.
Even now, if they were to make if there was these uprisings that have happened recently around Black Lives Matter, what do you think Superman would do? What would he, what I'm saying? Superman doesn't play in these spaces, right?
Yeah, would he even have a place?
Muhammad X knows that. He says, this isn't your spot, right? I got this. It's handled. You're not needed. You don't need your help, right? But when we actually need you, you're not here. And you don't really care to be here, right? So go on about your business and let me work my problem in my community, right?
Yeah.
And Superman said, I'm just here to help, and I'm here for everyone. And he's like, no, that's not what's actually happening. That's just how you see it and how it makes you be able to sleep at night. Not saying that Superman is wrong here, and I'm not making him out to be the villain, but there is some white privilege that Superman gets to enjoy.
Yeah.
Even though he's not, and this is not making Superman wrong. This is not, again, white privilege is not something I'm saying is white people's fault. I'm saying it exists, right?
Yeah.
And so there's some white privilege he enjoys. He thinks he can go in any neighborhood and be safe and do whatever he wants because he embodies the American way. And no, we don't really roll like that, right? You're not going to Compton and clean it up. Superman's not just going to create more of a rebellion. You know what I mean? So... Not that there is a solution, and this book doesn't give you a solution. It shows you that there are different perspectives happening simultaneously in these situations that are not merging.
Right.
So I like that. I like that they didn't answer it. I like that they created a black superhero just for that purpose. And never again. No, it doesn't show up even in a guest panel in Christ on Infinite Earths in the corner. Nothing. There is no other. And I thought that was interesting, too. And I talked about it on blacksuperherofan.com. You have a little thing about Muhammad X.
Yeah.
But he has no other purpose other than to move this story forward.
Right.
And he did that. Right? Wouldn't it be great, though, if he showed up in Stargirl? That would be awesome. But, and I don't know, could we... just because of his name, though, would that make him a radical automatically? Because you read Muhammad and Malcolm X in the one name.
Yeah.
So I don't think there's anything. I'm not reading anything like we can't use this guy because he's too controversial. I didn't read anything like that. I think the hero had his stance. He told his story and his viewpoint, and that job was nicely done. This is a Superman story, though. Right? And it starts off with him talking to his psychiatrist.
Yeah,
right?
I was gonna get into that.
Yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry. It's not. You go ahead.
And that's sort of the setup for why he's even in Harlem, because he has to go to New York, I guess, to get counseling. So, yeah, I don't know. I thought it was really interesting that was where it started, and I thought it was going to be a very different book based on that. So, welcome back, Emmanuel. Yeah, just the fact that it starts off at a therapist is, I guess, sort of where my line of thinking started, right? Mm-hmm. Like, he's at a therapist, so clearly he knows that he's or is exploring the fact that he's out of touch.
Yeah.
You know. But yeah,
And then
the whole reason he was even in New York was because he's got personal issues he needs to work through.
Yeah, otherwise he wouldn't even be there.
He wouldn't even. Yeah, he wouldn't have even.
Harlem
done
ain't never. Harlem already. We already got our heroes, homie. Don't come in here trying to act like you. I'm here for everyone. I'm here to save. I'm only here to help. No, you're not. Where were you last week?
Right.
Right. Where were you 3 days ago? Where were you last month? Last year? Last decade? How long you been superheroing? Right. Because you don't see. Right. You're more likely to see Batman in Harlem.
Yeah.
Right. Then you will see, because Batman will stop any criminal. He don't care. But he's more likely if one of his villains goes to Harlem, he'll follow him there. All right. He can't even, Batman can't even handle Gotham City. So truth be told, he ain't coming to Harlem either because, right, Gotham's still broken.
But he is more likely to than Suits.
But if you think about it, Wonder Woman, name any Justice Leaguer that is not black that is likely to show up in Harlem.
Oh, yeah, that's a good question. I don't know that any of them would.
Flash would run by it.
Who? Yeah, through it. He wouldn't stop to fix nothing, though, right? But if unless there's a super villain rampage, he wouldn't even, you know what I mean? He may run through it, but he may not.
For that matter, what supervillain is trying to conquer the world from Harlem?
Yeah, right. Because if it's just if it's just a Black Doctor Doom, that's not whatever.
And I think
Right.
that point was made by Muhammad X.
Yeah.
He mentioned that no villains are even going to stop by here either. So
Yeah.
there's no need.
I think that was like the first couple panels where he meets Superman. He's like, we don't have any of these mad
Yeah.
scientists or robots or aliens in Harlem.
Yeah.
None of that shit's here.
But if you put that up against the Avengers, who all live in New York,
Right.
You can't, right? But all is, so it's not surprising Spider-Man might swing through Harlem, right? But they might not have as many tall buildings, so he may not because he needs tall buildings to swing. So maybe not Spider-Man, right? But maybe Kamala Khan, maybe the Black Spider-Man. You know what I mean? Maybe some of those characters. So it's more likely Avengers show up. Thor may actually show up. Just because he's a guy that needs to be worshipped and he don't care what color you are, worship me, I am Thor. Right?
I am
Fabio
mighty.
Man or whatever. But that is an ongoing issue and concern because it's not addressed in comics, right? And then remember we talked about some time back about how black superheroes tend to stay in their hood,
Yeah.
right? And now you can see there's some conversation to that because white superheroes are not coming there. Of course, I can come to the white superhero area and fight crime. That's cool, right? But you ain't coming back to mine.
Yeah.
Even though grandmama got them greens in the pot, I'm just saying, you ain't coming through, right?
But
I
then-
remember when Luke Cage used to get paid in food from old ladies in the hood when he was hero for hire because they couldn't afford him, and he took it.
Would that be because they don't feel, maybe they feel as if Superman did, have that question raised where, am I doing a disservice by going here?
Well, so that was addressed in this one comic that I presented, and I don't see anywhere else is addressed unless the main protagonist is a black superhero, and that is sort of part of why I brought that to the table. But I haven't heard from either with you. Buy, read, or pan? What is it?
Oh, this is a buy.
What do you got?
I would get a
one,
buy.
Yeah, this is one to have
Two
in the
buys.
collection because just to the main fact that this is the first and only appearance of this character, Muhammad X, right? Like, definitely have this in your collection.
Yes, I do it again. Okay, well, I got nothing to say because I did mine. So I pass it to you, unless there are any final words.
Nope.
Good.
Okay.
right.
Emmanuel, please lead us.
All right, my first issue, Teen Titans, Volume 6, issue number 44. Set the scene. This is the Titans, not the Titans, but the Teen Titans, where Robin Damian Wayne is the leader,
And even though he's the youngest, he's still very much Bruce Wayne and Talia al Ghul's son. Beautiful mind, analytical, very tact, very much a tactician. So they've elevated him, or he's the leader. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. He's the youngest, but he's the most skilled.
He brought them
And
together.
oh, I didn't know he actually brought them together.
Yeah, this
Well,
team
yeah.
was brought together. He handpicked them.
Nice. He's the most skilled, even though he has no powers. But what he does bring to the table is leadership, tactical skills, and that mind of his. Speaking of that mind of his, it's gotten him into some unique trouble. I'll let you guys tell me what you thought about this issue.
Matt, you better go first.
So I obviously don't follow DC like you guys do. So I haven't been reading this run. This is my first introduction to this particular team of Teen Titans. I really love the artwork in this book. I thought it was phenomenal. It has great motion to it, and was really, even though it was sort of always nighttime and always dark, still had a lot of life and color to it, which I thought was good. I am really interested in is it Crush or Crash?
Crush.
Crush is
Crush.
Lobo's daughter, right?
Yes.
She's kind of an interesting character, and the dynamic between the different team members was really cool, I thought. You do have Damian Wayne, who this story centers around maybe losing his mind, I guess. I don't know how to really describe that. He's kind of like a spoiled brat that's like, well, I know everything, so just let me do this type of thing. And then, daddy's got to come in and say, no, you're done. You're not doing this anymore, type of thing.
Get in the car.
Toys.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
Get in the car.
so yeah, it was kind of interesting in that regard. Just it's kind of it's interesting that you have these kids that are fighting crime, and then what happens when that goes a little awry, I guess. So, Russ, what are your thoughts?
Okay, so first of all, this is issue number 44.
Yeah.
So this has been going on for some years now. And the history of this book is Damian Wayne brought together his own team so he could do what he wanted to do. People who were willing to go a little farther so he would have a revolving door in the jails. And even then, the dirt he was doing was so bad, he still couldn't tell them all of it. He just needed the team, right? So created for this issue was Crush, was new, right? This isn't even the first Red Arrow. These are all very, very teenage characters. So the third, fourth generation teenage characters. Even the Kid Flash is not the original Kid Flash, right? I don't even know if he's younger or older than Impulse. They could be the same age for all I know, right? And this whatever, the Asian blue skin guy, I just think they needed somebody, So Crush and the Asian blue skin blonde hair guy were created for this series, right? And what brought them together was things like this Kid Flash was fighting somebody. He was fighting the Suicide Squad, and he was taking them down, right? And then the original Wally West came in and was like, oh, no, let them go. They're good, whatever. And it's like, but they just hurt somebody. They didn't have to hurt. They hurt regular people. They should be stopped. He says, well, you don't understand. It's a government thing. They're sanctioned, etc. And he was like, no, we don't allow this. What kind of heroes are we being, right?
Yeah.
So each of the original characters what brought them together was saying regular things don't work. And Robin took that and took them in, right? And they started doing things. So I'm not going to give you the whole 44-issue run. And there was another hero that was part of that team initially. But this whole series is how far will Damian Wayne go? This whole series is that.
Okay.
Right? And just when you think he's appalled his team enough, he goes worse. Right? They break up. They beat him down. He comes back because he still thinks he's the smartest thing going. And Damian Wayne is very smart, but Damian Wayne is 12. Maybe he's 13. Teen Titan, 13, right? So he's just not going to get the nuances of the world. He's just not, as smart as he is, he doesn't know everything, right? And this whole series is just this. So if I take this book by itself, this book is, to me, Damian Wayne leads the Teen Titans. He goes too far, and they rebel, which happens a whole lot of issues in this book,
Okay.
right? And this time he's gone so far that Daddy has to come in, and then Daddy comes in the last panel. But there's really nothing, right? But this whole thing is like one big argument, right? I do like the motion art of the motion of the characters in this book. I think that's nice, right? Otherwise, I think it's more of a not DC, not Marvel, but other top tier art creators. This is sort of what I see in this, right? Like this could easily be an Image book if not for these characters, right?
Okay.
That's
Yeah.
sort of what I see art-wise. I don't think there's enough here to care about other than Damien went too far. Grown folks is going to get him killed, right? He might really die this time because grown folks are getting involved, right? And he doesn't know. He's not as smart as he thinks he is. And then here comes Batman to spank him. That's kind of the book. I felt it's maybe a read, but I didn't feel that it brought anything revolutionary. I didn't feel it brought anything necessarily memorable. This kind of thing, if you think about the history of Damian Wayne, wasn't Batman sooner or later going to show up and say, stop? Wasn't that always going to happen? Right? Wasn't Damian always going too far? Even when he got introduced to his father, right? He was always going too far, and his father had to pull him on his cape and say, stop, right? I feel like this is just another version of that story with the added layer of the interest of these other characters. I think Crush is very interesting, by the way. And her story, which only exists in this book. So if you want to know where Crush came from, what happens when she meets Lobo, it all happens in this series.
Okay.
But I didn't actually, and I read this book before, also I should say, not before because it's a recent book. But I wasn't impressed. It wasn't a bad book, right? The art to me, when they're not moving, wasn't that good. You know what I mean? If you look at like the last panel before Batman shows up and they're standing there looking at him, I think I could have drawn that. I'm not that good, but you know what I'm saying. I don't feel like the art was there. I don't feel like the story brought new beats and anything surprising, right? Is it surprising Damian went too far? No. Is it surprising Batman to show up and spank him? No. Is it surprising that people are getting tired of Damian doing stuff and the villain's going to try to kill him? No. So what here is saying, ooh, I like this take. I didn't feel like that was there. So, and I feel like the next issue will be better because we probably actually get to see Batman spank Damian. But it ain't happening in this book. So I felt it doesn't quite reach to the read pile for me for those reasons.
So someone just coming on and not knowing the pulse or the theme of the book, of the issue itself, well, not the issue itself, but the whole book, the story arc, what would you think? Because this kind of encapsulates, the reason why I picked it encapsulates that theme, as you mentioned, about Damian getting into trouble. And like what we're alluding to, Matt, is Damian actually took some of the villains and captured them.
Okay.
Apart from Arkham Asylum, apart from any kind of jail. So he was judge, jury, and he didn't kill them. So he wasn't executioner, but
he did try to reprogram. Yeah, he tried to reprogram them so they wouldn't even be villains. They just give regular lives.
A very childlike
way of solving problems.
Yeah.
Yes.
So that's the whole theme of the book.
Okay, so I'll say that to say, isn't that who's Damian always has been? You know how you get young people to come in? I know how to fix this. Right. Like, no, you don't get all of this. You think you know enough, but you don't fucking know enough. Mm-hmm. But you don't get that you might not know enough, so you're just going to go in and mess it up for everybody. I feel like this is if this this series didn't exist, isn't this the same Damian that's always been that way? I feel like what did this bring new? Because again, Matt hadn't read these previous issues. What did this book bring new that doesn't show up in other books that Damian is in?
Solid point.
That is my point. I'm not saying it's a bad book. I'm saying nothing new here. And this book costs what, $4, $5?
Yeah, I think DC books are $4.
All right. So I say not worth $4 because you didn't really bring anything new. The next book might. If I see Batman slap Damian, I want that book.
You did,
Right?
Robin.
Sit down. Right? If I see Batman slap Damian in public, I want that book on my wall. You know what I'm saying? Because that's some. You know what I'm saying? You know that meme where Batman slaps Robin
Yes.
that they keep using. If that next issue he slaps Robin, get in the car. Right? I'm blowing that shit up and getting a T-shirt made. But it didn't happen. It didn't happen in this issue.
Read it.
All right.
All right.
So I'm more excited about next issue than about this because again, if this book never existed, I'm just saying it's an interesting story, but there's 44 issues. All right. Would you say this is something you need to have in your collection? It's just more. You gotta love Damian, right? You already know he's gonna mess up. He's gonna keep messing up. If you love that, if you love Damian, this is a Damian Teen Titans,
Yeah.
which is probably need to be disbanded. Which is why probably they will be disbanded, and Young Justice will take back over because I think that's a much better book in all ways. Again, it's not terrible, just didn't bring anything. It didn't bring amazing art. It didn't bring amazing new concepts. It just brought more Damian Wayne doing his own people wrong, who trying to follow him and help him, and he's going too far. He's gonna get everybody killed. Right? We can just make a whole animated series based on how Damian Wayne is going to get everybody killed.
I
So
think he really
that-
needs
Go ahead.
John Kent. John Kent, Damian Wayne, that would temper him. That would
It was.
cause him to
And
grow more.
And those two series, Super Sons, those are great books. And you
Yeah.
should definitely be reading those books. But now that they aged up John Kent, he's now like 16.
Yeah.
Or they put him to the Legion of Superheroes. There is a Legion of Superheroes episode where he goes back and gets Damian and brings him to the future. And Damian's like, there's no Bat-themed characters in the Legion of Superheroes. He says, I know, right? And then so you might want to read that, right? And it's Brian Michael Bendis. So I'll leave that up to you,
All right.
right? And yes, Damon doesn't have any friend. Who's his friend? Only... Right,
Yeah,
Damian
right.
has no, and Damian needs a friend, and the only one who could be a friend who's not scared of him, because most people his age are gonna be scared of him, right?
Yeah.
Let's just be real. Even Kid Flash and everybody else, they ain't, they act like they ain't scared, but they ain't turning their back on him either, right? But John Kent, that's his homie. So I think Damian Wayne needs a John Kent.
He
Maybe
does.
we need another super character, right? The Batman family is big. Can we put another Superman family up in there? I will say this. You know how they're doing the Dark Knight's metal and everything has been Batmanized
Yeah.
and all the Dark Knight's metal? Well, now I saw a screenshot of a book. I think it's a one-shot of all the super pets have been Jokerized.
Oh,
Run
Jesus.
by... I mean, everything. Streaky the Super Cat. They all been Jokerized. And you see... I mean, because you know this, the Super Horse, the
Or
Super
Crypto?
Monkey. Yes, Crypto. All of them have been Jokerized, right? And they're all foaming at the mouth. Like they've all got Joker rabies. Is that your book? I don't know. But as I was saying before we get online, I'm really Batmaned out.
Yeah.
It's just too much Batman, right? I don't mind stuff in the world of Batman, but I'm really Bruce Wayne'd out. I am going to watch the movie when it comes out because hopefully it's more detective-y, right? And a little more grimy. And I'm looking for detective-y and grimy, right? I'm okay with that, right? But do I need another Batman book or movie or universe where the entire dark universe is Batman evil? Right? There was even one episode in the Dark Universe, one screenshot where Batman basically took over all the Justice League, and the Atom was hiding in a blade of grass, and he called himself the Batum. I was done. This is Batum reporting. I'm like, you're not. You know, say everybody is a Batman. I think it's just too much, and I've had enough. And maybe that flavored how I received this Teen Titans book, so I'll own part of that. Because I really feel like Damian is a one-stick character, right? Is there some nuance to Damian that makes it want to follow? There's something new, right? Other than he can fight, he's good, he's better than anyone else his age. You know, he's got all the training and he could kill if he wanted to, but nothing. He's not a likable character to me, right? I try to like him, right? So then when you look at if this is a Damian-centric book and he's not a likable character, I couldn't. It lost me. I'm not saying it's a terrible book. I just can't recommend it. But if you're looking for a jumping on point to this story, which I don't even know if this series will last, but this does, you're right, sort of encapsulate what's been happening in these other 43 issues into this one book. But it took 44 issues to get here, which should have happened in issue like 12 in the annual or something, right? Anyway.
Yeah, I'd say this is a read for me.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Moving on to my second book, the last book of the day, Maestro. Now, the question was posed earlier. I picked a book where Maestro was featured, and the question was posed, what's his origin? He never really had an origin book. He kind of had an origin story, like this is the Hulk from the future, but we really didn't know what went on in that future to cause him to be this way. So this answers that question. The Hulk from the future. What do you guys think?
I'll go.
Yeah.
I liked it. You know what? And I look at the art, which I really liked. It's like if Frank Quietly actually did backgrounds. You know what I mean? Am I wrong? It's like because he's good on faces and everything else, right? But this is like, right?
No.
Right? Okay. Well, I like his. This to me is if Frank Quietly actually drew backgrounds too, right? I think if he actually put his work into every part of the panel. But I enjoyed the art of it. And this is a guy I've never seen before. I do like the Hulk with all the hair all over the face and the mustache, the goatee, and the long. That's a great looking Hulk for me, right? That's the Hulk I can roll with, right? And I do. So I've always been interested in Maestro. Maestro's been around for a long time. We're talking back when Silver Surfer was big and all of this, and Adam Warlock. The Maestro has been around in that space for a while, but always in theory from a parallel universe. So I've always been interested in him, but they never really told a story in a way that I could catch. And this is the telling of that story. And I like this Hulk. I don't know if he is another fractured personality or a combined personality, if that was all a dream. I don't know if Bruce Banner is still in there somewhere. I don't know any of that yet, right? But this is another post-apocalyptic story. I know, Matt, you love those. Post-apocalyptic Earth. And this is the Hulk in one state and then find out what he thought was real was not without me getting into too much detail. And then finding out what's left of the world and who's still around. And that's interesting also. And all of those things. It makes for a good story. I want to know more about this. I enjoyed this book. I actually think this book is a buy.
Okay.
Seeing an old grizzled MODOK was a nice touch.
Yeah. So I really enjoyed the artwork on this, and I thought the story was really interesting. So Peter David writing it, I mean, he's done all kinds of books, and is a good writer. So I trust that it's going to be told in a really interesting and entertaining way. I don't like the post-apocalyptic stuff. That just it bothers me that people keep going back to that, and I feel like humanity has this weird collective unconsciousness towards making sure that we get to post-apocalypticism, because it keeps showing up in popular media. But
I feel like that's the way we're headed, and we keep bringing it up so people would get off the gas pedal. Because well, by the way, you keep doing this, global warming, and there is some hype to global warming, even though I believe there is some truth, right? There is some hype, right?
Right.
And of course, if you think the world is going to hell in a handbasket, you got to wake people up and say, hey, and so you're going to put some hype in it, right? So post-apocalyptic tales are, because when you look at, if you just take America, we're all three Americans, right?
Yeah.
Do you really think America, the average American, is really a good person? Is really trying to make the world a better place? Not in your circle. I mean the average American, numbers-wise, right? Is the average American selfless? Is the average American living within their means? Is the average American really care about their fellow man? And I would say no. But that's my opinion, right? So if I take the average American as one being and where they're heading, are they heading to destruction? It's not unlikely. Not saying it will happen. I'm not doomsdaying this, right? So, and again, we're Americans, so we're stuck in it, so we might look at it differently because this is our world, right? But if you look at it from outside, right, America doesn't look that hot. Right? America doesn't look like even it's becoming less of a place you want to live. It's becoming less of a place that's a place that a foreigner should want to come. Remember, it was all giving your huddled masses. So I'm thinking post-apocalyptic is just very much people saying, get off the goddamn gas pedal to destruction. Right? Like, I want to go to hell, but I don't want to wait in line. Right?
Yeah.
So let me go murder people in a church. Oops, sorry, that might have got us off YouTube. Oh, we're not on YouTube. Okay, never mind. But you know what I'm saying, right? So I think post-apocalyptic is a real thing. If you look at some places in the world, I mean, we all left California, three of us, right? We were all in California at one time, right?
Yeah.
Is it a good idea that people go back there? They're raising taxes. They're having power outages. Cost of living is just increasing there. Right? I know some people in this August body do intend to return. I won't say any names. But right now, oh yeah, that guy right there you're pointing to, yeah. It's a lot more and harder to make it there than it was when we were there.
Yeah.
Right? And making it is sustainably harder. You know what I mean? Sustaining living that life. Right? I know Matt ain't going back.
No.
He may go back to visit.
Yeah.
He may go back to the Compton Comic Con, to show up. I'll be doing that remotely. But I do feel like that, yes, science fiction, especially like heavy metal and stuff, post-apocalyptic is possibly overdone. However, do you feel like if America is going in a better direction?
Well, that wasn't what I was getting at with.
I know. That's why I did it.
My concern is that it gets romanticized.
Yeah.
So that's the only thing that, I mean, if that's where we're headed, that's where we're headed, right? Like,
and then you also got to look at, if you want a drastic version of a character, then they have to go through something. It's the hero's journey, right?
yeah.
If you want a drastic version of a character, they have to have some drastic tragedy to change their worldview.
And that's what I was going to get into. So, I can't remember what book it was. Amanda, do you remember which book you brought where it had Maestro in it?
I don't remember offhand. I could look for it.
I think it was an early episode that we did. It was.
Can Maestro beat Thanos in a fight
I want to say he can.
Yeah, well, I was going to say, like,
without the glove?
Well, yeah, without the glove. I was going to say, like, I think Maestro's an interesting take on the Hulk character. I mean, it's an alternate timeline, right? He's not.
Yes.
It's not Prime Universe stuff. It's not 616, but
it makes sense that if he went back in time, he wouldn't go back to his universe. He would go to a different one, right? In theory.
Yeah.
Which is ours.
Yeah, exactly. And so it's interesting to have the intelligent Bruce Banner, Hulk, all in one, sort of moving forward. And yeah, you do have to have that tragedy to shape the personality. And so if that is post-apocalyptic, and that's what creates the character, I'm all for that. I think it's going to be an interesting series. I don't know if this is going to be ongoing or if it's a limited series.
I don't know either.
I think if it's a limited series, it's probably 4 or 5 issues. If that's the case, I may go back and just buy all the single issues. If it's 5 issues, because I think it's going to be an interesting overall story for the character.
Yeah, and it's fun to look at.
Yeah, this is a good intro. The artwork's good. I like the writer. Yeah, solid. I think it's a buy for me.
It's a buy for me too.
Yeah, if it's going to be 5 issues, it's a buy for sure.
Nice.
So, all right, those are the issues that we've had this week. We had some stuff in the round table. Do you guys want to get into the links
Sure.
and whatnot?
Let's do it.
All right, so I put a question out there, and it says, are powerless significant others in comics relevant? Meaning, Steve Trevor, is he relevant? Does it matter? Lois Lane, does she matter? Mary Jane, hot, but does she matter? Right? Should any of these characters get their own books? Right? Or are we doing Kathy Keene books now? Right? And you can insert your own powerless significant other here. I just picked 3 that I knew most people knew. What do you guys think about that?
So I would say that they do matter, but in the context of the main character, right? So they are support characters. They're there to flesh out the main character.
Should they have their own books?
Well, I mean, I don't know. Like Lois Lane had a book for a while, right?
Just recently.
Yeah, I mean, it's possible if you give it to a good writer. I think
Mary Jane just had a book. She's still ongoing right now.
I think you can do some interesting things with those powerless characters. Yeah. I don't necessarily think they should have their own book. I'm not buying those books personally.
Neither am I.
But
I know Mary Jane has a book. Lois Lane has a book. All right? But, Lois Lane got a get out of jail free card. She could just say Smallville under her breath. And somewhere around the planet, even in another universe, Superman be like, Lois. Right? And he's going to be there. Right? So she got that. Right? Mary Jane don't got that. She got to use her own how I control men powers. But she good at that. Right? Face it, Tiger. You hit the jackpot. She know how to work that. Right? Does Aunt May need her own book? Spider-Man.
Yeah, Spider-Man.
Right? Does Aunt May need her own book? I mean, does Steve Trevor need his own book?
There's only so much you can take about Aunt May's recipes for wheat cakes. And Steve Trevor, I don't think he's really done anything outside of just be Diana's boy toy.
Challenge
that's
accepted.
Notable.
Challenge accepted. I got you.
So you're going to write it, or
I'm going to find a book for you.
Okay.
I'm going to find a book and bring it to you.
There was
Steve
an
Trevor.
issue. There was an issue where in the Spider-Man world, since Peter Parker's Spider-Man, this girl that he went to high school with, he didn't really know her name, but he kept showing up in her life. So she felt as if Spider-Man was stalking her or had some sort of affinity for her, when in actuality, Peter Parker was just in her, not even in her immediate circle, was just living life around her. And because his life is chaotic, her life was chaotic because she was in his orbit. And when she grew up, this caused her to obsess about him, to obsess about Spider-Man and about him showing up in her life various places.
She
And
sounds
to the
like a
point where
supervillain.
she had no powers and no heightened intellect to devise any kind of means of retribution. So it was just she wrote
So
articles.
she's a millennial.
She was bitter. She wrote articles. She was vocal about her disdain and hate for Spider-Man, thinking
Mhm.
that he had ruined her life. It wasn't, and this is old when Peter Parker had died, Mary Jane is old herself. She looks like a grandmother, and this lady's so still bitter and still like just hateful. There's a scene where, or a panel where she's sitting on a bench, and the widowed Mary Jane comes and sit down next to her. I don't know. I don't recall if she told her that it was Peter Parker, but she kind of heard her story and researched all the articles and just took pity on the woman because it wasn't about her at all. She was just in his orbit. That's an interesting story, like a one shot, but I would never read a whole subsequent issues about that. It's just not that appealing to me.
Yeah, and for me, it just seemed like she was just all about her. Spider-Man being around hurt me. I want the world to know he's a bad person. I'm going to spend my whole life picketing Spider-Man sites and everything else, spewing my hate. Not unlike J. Jonah Jameson. Now, I'm not saying that her being a Spider-Man orbit hasn't in any way harmed her life, but move on. Maybe leave New York. I'm just saying, Spider-Man don't really leave New York, right? No. I think if you went to, fucking Atlanta, you wouldn't have had no Spider-Man problems. Why I gotta move? Why can't he move? I was here first. I was raised here. I'm like, how do you know he wasn't? But the character that thinks it's all about them, that's why I said millennial, by the way.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. The character that thinks everything that happens is about them, everything that bad happens. It's a conversation of, are you responsible for your life? Even when bad things, you don't control everything about your life, but you're still responsible, right?
Right.
If your life doesn't turn out the way you want, you don't control all of it, but you're still responsible, yes? If you're not happy, is it someone else's fault you're not happy, or is it your responsibility to make yourself happy? So for me, that character is sort of really detestable, or that type of character. Mm-hmm. Someone says, I'm not happy because you're around, fix yourself. Right? That sounds like the evil person in all the bad high school kids about the character that's really jealous of you or thinks it's all about them, right? We've seen all of those. That trope is not new. I feel like that's more of the same. Now, and there are a lot, Spider-Man has sex with a lot of women, a lot of redheads. A lot of their lives got messed up because of it. They didn't all turn evil, right? Spider-Man had sex with a lot of people. Flash had sex. Superman didn't. Batman. Then again, we don't know if Batman is really having sex or just dating, right? Because is Batman really sexing anybody? Because remember, when he made Damian, he was roofied, right? He was roofied into that. So is Batman fucking?
I don't think he is.
He ain't got time for that. Because you know how you gotta not have sex before the big game, and every night is Batman's big game. He can't be all drained.
Yeah.
Right? He can't be all drained like that, right? That may be an article upcoming. I don't know how to think about that.
Bruce Wayne's semen retention.
Right? That's probably he's probably Kip Villain. Right? I feel so blue balls.
Oh my God. All right.
He's not even sleeping full night's sleep. Okay, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I'm gonna have to tag this episode "Not Safe for Work" again.
There we go. I've done it again. Thank you.
So yeah, back to the question posed. I think powerless significant others in comics are relevant.
in the comics that they're in the comic books of the person they're significant others to.
Yeah, if it's given to a good writer, I mean anything's possible, right? Like if Brian Michael Bendis was to write a Lois Lane book, I might pick that up.
Didn't he?
Is he the one doing it?
Now you're going to make me look it up. Now I'm going to see. Okay. Challenge. Okay. You brought it up. You started this.
I think in that issue I mentioned about the woman that was in Peter Parker's orbit. If there was just one issue about that, and then the second issue was about Spider-Man's life and everything, just pick it up right where you left off. Perfect. That's exactly where that belongs. But a whole series, I don't think I'd be interested.
Let's see. Lois Lane, 12th issue maxi series, started in 2019. Greg Rucka.
Okay.
So no, not Brian Michael Bendis, but Rucka.
Yeah, I mean, his name is. It's
Greg Rucka is the writer.
yeah. I mean, I know the name. I don't know that
Okay.
I can pick out other stuff that he's written, but yeah, I know I've seen.
And he's been in the game a long time. I think he can write. So now it is a 12-issue maxi series. It is fully complete. You could probably find a graphic novel called Lois Lane, DC Universe. And on the cover, it's on the first issue. It says, "Sia uncovers the most dangerous secret in the DC Universe."
Interesting.
And
Okay.
now just has to prove it.
All right. It might be worth picking
But
up.
it's not Bendis, so I can't fault you if you don't. But I am going to bring you your Steve Trevor story. I just want you to know I'm
Alright.
doing that.
Okay.
So next week is going to be Steve Trevor and Lois Lane. Is that?
I'm not bringing Lois Lane. I didn't invite you. I promised you, because if it was Bendis, then I might. But it's not Bendis because you said Bendis. But you said, Emmanuel, there's no Steve Trevor story, and so I'm going to give you one, and I'm going to
Alright.
see if that makes him relevant.
If you can prove me wrong, I win.
Well, no,
because
no,
that
it's
means I
not-
get a good story. I said that there will be no Steve Trevor story that I'll be interested in.
And
So
that's
please
the
prove me wrong.
challenge. That's the and you may not be interested, but he is definitely going to be relevant in this book, and it is a modern book, like it came out in the last year.
Okay. All right.
So I already know one of my books, which got good save me. This is on my list, so now I don't have to scour the internet for my next books for next week.
yeah.
We have another thing on the show notes, right?
Yeah, so
Since-
in the show notes I posted, this is a Reddit post that somebody did, which is the Witchblade reading guide, and he breaks down, he or she, I'm not sure, Power Woman is the person that posted it. They break down Witchblade 1 through 79. Do you have to read this? 80 through 150. Do you have to read this? 151 to 180. And just sort of gives us a brief synopsis of each sort of chunk of the overall story. And then also gets into, like, Manuel, you had mentioned that you're really interested in the mythology and the lore behind the Witchblade itself.
Yes.
There's a whole series on that called Artifacts, which delves into the Angelus, the Witchblade, the Darkness, all the different items in the Top Cow universe that power up their users. So this is a great little post on Reddit that I thought was pretty cool on our comic books that we could share. Something that I wanted to put together and write, but somebody already did it, so done.
Yep. Done. You're right. But we will put that link in the show notes. So if you are looking to get into that, you can take a look for yourself, and maybe that will help guide you as to what to read or how to approach Witchblade if Witchblade is relatively new to you,
Yeah.
or if you're just getting back into her, the character.
All right, and on that note, any final thoughts for the week?
Is Wonder Woman having sex? I mean, she been. Is somebody doing Wonder Woman?
I
If it's not Superman, because I think there was a time
I was gonna
in the
say,
New 52,
yeah.
Superman was, but this was a more cockier Superman. This isn't the Superman we know, actually, right? This is this New 52 Superman, and not the current Superman in the comics.
But if
So-
not Superman, who could handle?
Does it need to be? Does it need to be a superpowered person? Remember, She-Hulk had a boyfriend, Wyatt Wingfoot. Remember Wyatt Wingfoot? Okay, Wyatt Wingfoot was a Native American, big guy
Right.
who was smart and worked with the Fantastic Four on a lot of issues, but also a Native American leader.
Okay.
His name is Wyatt Wingfoot. I'm gonna just throw that out there if you're looking for some randomness, right? She-Hulk was sexing a buff Native American dude that had no powers. I'm just saying, She-Hulk, right? Let her put her legs around you. I'm just saying. Now, We should have an ongoing maybe I don't know. Who's having real sex? I know She-Hulk is having sex. She-Hulk is doing Thor right now, right? So we already know, right? But let's go with just the main superheroes, like the main superheroes in Justice League. And Martian Manhunter having sex is he could turn into anything. I know Plastic Man is having sex.
Oh, Plastic Man.
Because he can change his size and girth at will.
I would think Martian. Oh gosh, I would think Martian Manhunter is because it's part of the human experience. I would say so.
Still cross species though.
Yeah.
Right. Just because you go and what's attractive to him. Remember what he really looks like, compared to what he shows to the world.
I'm not
What's
saying
attractive
he has
to
morals
him?
about it.
Oh man, you just making him dirty. I feel so dirty right now.
It's part of the human experience.
Right.
He's lonely.
Right? Is Cyborg having sex, or is he having cyber sex?
And on that note, gentlemen, we're out.
All right. Now back to that farting power where you could change the flavor of your fart that you scent. Right? You could change it to a flavor, like if you want like beef stroganoff or whatever, you could.
I don't approve of flavored farts.
Flavored farts.